from David Hasselhoff's Star in Hollywood. Misha and Dianne are watching Santa Barbara. Welcome to week 119 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
Hope you had a good Halloween weekend. It's November 3rd, 1986. We've watched episode 577 of Santa Barbara, and a storm is moving in. I like these episodes where storms move in, because you notice it in all the scenes, sometimes subtly. Cece fears that Gina has kidnapped Sophia. Back on the plane, Gina insists that Sophia check with Cece because he would not condone this kidnapping. So they do, and Sophia explains her plan to Cece, and Cece says, yeah, get rid of the excess baggage. So Gina is livid as they fly into the storm, and somehow Gina manages to knock out the pilot. So Sophia is forced to take the wheel, and then they lose an engine. And the last time we see them, the plane has crashed. So I don't know if they've crashed on the island that Sophia was planning to strand them on, which by all accounts is quite vacant, except for some cannibals. That might have been a joke. But, based on the fact that Gina fell asleep earlier and they've been in the storm, they're probably hundreds of miles away from Santa Barbara by now.
Yeah, I'm sure some crafty fan has maybe plotted out where in the, I assume, South Pacific or whatever.
Well, she said the island's adjacent to Baja, which to me, I think of Baja, California being on the Mexico side, so... we hear storm sounds in the distance as Cruz tells Eden that going into the ocean in front of Tori was incredibly cruel. And they spend several scenes arguing. Eden decides to pack her bags, saying, oh, this is what you want anyway. And Cruz ends up leaving. Back at probably the Orient Express, where everything happens, Keith badgers Victoria for being so happy to have saved Eden. And in their little argument, Victoria lets slip that Katie called for help several times, but Victoria then tries to cover up. Cruz arrives at the Orient Express, and Victoria tells him that Martin has left town. So that leaves John Wesley's ship open to star in The Flash in about a year or so, I think. Cruz gets a call from Cece asking him to lead up the search for Sophia's plane. Now, this is our first indication that for some reason they think that Sophia's plane, which is hundreds of miles in Mexico, that the search should be coordinated from Santa Barbara, which seems absurd. Santana shows Brick her divorce papers, and Brick offers to help her get Brandon back. They visit Cece, and Cece says that he'll never let anything happen to Brandon, but Santana says you already have by letting Gina move in here. And Cece wishes Brick wouldn't take sides. I guess he's a little annoyed that he's constantly on the other side with Brick, because obviously he wants to have a good relationship with Brick for Sophia's sake. Santana then visits Eden and asks for help convincing Cece to give her custody of Brandon rather than Gina, but Eden says that Cece has to do what's best for Kelly. So Santana gets very angry with Eden and does her self-righteous thing where she says that everyone else is garbage to you people and runs out.
And this is actually a little bit of an echo of what Brick has been saying, certainly in regards to the aftermath of Amy's death. So I feel like the two of them could definitely form a common cause.
Keith visits Eden, complaining that Victoria couldn't rescue Katie that day, but is acting like today is a personal victory. Eden says, "Stay away from me." Keith says, I'm going to keep coming back until I found out exactly what happened. For once, you and I seem to be on the same side. So, I don't really feel like Keith can glean anything about Katie from Eden's jumping into the ocean. I mean, it was all about, Cruz, so I don't know. But since he's no longer DA, I'm all for any scene that Keith manages to get into.
That's right.
Later, the storm causes Eden to close the Orient Express, and she starts to kick people out. She kicks out Keith and then tells Victoria to leave, but also brings up the fact that I don't know if she explicitly says she's moved out, but maybe she implies that Victoria knows, because she says, I want you to know this doesn't clear the path for you and Cruz. And Victoria's left in the main dining room briefly, and then a window smashes. Now, they're on the 8th floor, so there's not like a tree outside with a branch. So I don't know if just the sheer force of the storm has smashed a window. I feel like it's pretty shoddy workmanship on the 1.5-year-old Orient Express. Maybe someone could sue the construction people.
Well, we've seen in the past that actually the Capwell buildings do not always have the best workmanship. If they did, maybe...
letters wouldn't fall over on people.
Yeah, exactly.
Alice tells Caroline that Lionel is very depressed. Caroline tells Lionel that at least Augusta loved him. She realizes years too late that Jane's father never loved her. Lionel says that Augusta's reason for leaving doesn't make sense, which I think we know is true because of that little one-tag scene of Augusta's that we saw. Lionel finds out about Sophia's plane and rushes to his boat to help the search. So, whereas Cruz may have access to a helicopter or something, Lionel's got an even slower mode of transportation to get from Santa Barbara all the way to the border and past into the Baja area. So, another ill thought out rescue attempt for Sophia. Alice and Carolyn then have a chat, and Alice tells Carolyn that Brian is the only person who ever loved her. Carolyn asks if her parents loved her, and Alice says she can't remember. So she's got a lot of memory issues from when she was young. Carolyn tells Cece that Lionel's gone out to look for Sophia. And Cece asks Carolyn what Lionel is to her, and she says a friend, and he looks skeptical at that. And he seems a little annoyed that Carolyn and Lionel might end up as a couple. So that's an interesting, response from Cece. Carolyn surprises Lionel on the yacht and offers to go with him, and Lionel says the harbor master probably won't even let me out of the harbor. So I guess he's thought things through a little bit during his race to the boat. But they're on the yacht and it's stormy, so they may end up needing rescuing too. Well, that is it for this episode. Now, we've been watching St. Elsewhere every Wednesday, and we're in season 6 right now, and an actor named Kyle Secor has appeared in the last couple of episodes we've seen, and he will be showing up on Santa Barbara in the next, 2 to 4 weeks, I think, if I remember correctly. So we'll see if we recognize him. That's it for the Monday episode. Gonna probably an exciting week of looking for Gina and Sophia, and then, Gina and Sophia shipwrecked on an island could be a humorous thing. Let's hope that pilot's okay. And then next week, I guess, will be the wedding. So we will see who survives to marry Cece Capwell. We'll be back after we watched episode 578 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I mean, even my personal life has fallen apart.
I don't think I want to hear this. Why don't you call up Dr. Ruth?
I fell in love not too long ago.
Somebody else from Madeline's stable?
No. With Pearl.
Boo.
But he never really cared about me, and now he says that he wants to be good friends.
God, your taste has certainly improved,
Well, I am tired of being the world's best friend. I want something more than that. Is that so wrong?
Little Courtney has become Spencer Tracy, has she?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, Spencer Tracy always had a heart of gold in the old flicks, and Clark Gable normally got the girl, and so that makes you Spencer Tracy and Madeline Clark, and it makes me Myrna Loy.
Welcome back.
Hello.
Welcome to the world's only Santa Barbara After Show. Presumably you, just as we have just finished episode 578 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Tuesday, November 4th, 1986. And on our nightly viewing of old TV shows, we spotted Ian Abercrombie on Falcon Crest. Mm-hmm. He, of course, played Philip, the butler. We saw John Considine, Cece's brother, on Cannon. And James Hong on, what was that? Was it Switch? Maybe Hawaii 5.0? One of those. All right, back to the show. Cece is angry with the Coast Guard because they haven't found Sophia's plane yet. Victoria tells Cruz it's too dangerous to go out into the 60-mile-per-hour winds. Cruz appears to be in Pearl's ferry. So that's the ship he's taking out, I think. Mm-hmm. It's the same set, clearly, and even the same closet is used. Victoria hides in that closet, and then Eden shows up and tries to convince Cruz to let her come to rescue Sophia. And Victoria watches them argue about their relationship. Then Cece arrives and takes Eden away. And finally at sea, Victoria reveals herself to Cruz. Of course, he's angry that she's hiding in the cupboard. Cruz tells her to put on a life jacket as the waves get higher and the boat tosses and turns. I am wondering if they will be shipwrecked on an island for several weeks, where anything could happen.
Oh, now wouldn't that throw a little wrench in any hopes that Eden has of getting back with Cruz right away?
Exactly. Then Victoria could end up pregnant.
Ooh.
Aboard the Lockridge yacht, Jane is annoyed to find Carolyn with Lionel. Jane tries to convince Lionel to give up on rescuing Sophia as it's too dangerous, and that Alice and Minx need him more. Courtney brings Alice some books as the storm rages. The French doors fly open, and Courtney has a hallucination of Madeline, dressed as a queen. Madeline says, "Your own sister, you murdered me. Tell them how you crushed my head and left me to die. You're guilty." I feel this is now 100% proof that Courtney didn't just find Madeline's body, but that she actually did kill her, unless Courtney's so crazy that she's hallucinating something she didn't do.
Or I wonder if, another possibility would be that it's kind of a two-part thing where someone attacked Madeline and Courtney comes and finishes the job or something like that. That could be a little wrinkle or complication.
Pearl arrives, of course, not putting Courtney in the best of moods, and Courtney tells him she's met someone new, referring, of course, to Keith Timmons. Pearl half-heartedly tries to stop Courtney from going out in the storm. Pearl and Alice read one of the books, and it reminds Pearl of his childhood, and he has flashbacks to him and Brian playing together in a treehouse. Mm-hmm. And the boys in the book have a treehouse called the Eagle's Den. And Alice says that Brian used to say a treehouse was a perfect hiding place and called it the Eagle's Den. So Pearl decides to track down the writer of the book. Could it be that Michael has been writing books while in hiding, and this is actually a book written by Michael?
And maybe he's living in a treehouse.
And that's where they'll find him. It's taken longer to see Michael than it has to see Pamela, almost. In the middle of who knows where, the pilot regains consciousness and sends out a mayday. Sophia regains consciousness, and they decide that they must be on one of the Channel Islands, which I think we looked at a map, and they're not that far from Santa Barbara. Gina is mumbling in her seat, and Sophia takes the opportunity to ask her where the tape is, hoping she will spill it in her sleep. Gina wakes up and asks if she's dead. Gina's leg is trapped. So while the pilot and Sophia can leave the plane, Gina is stuck there. Sophia asks if coming so close to death has made Gina think of the mistakes she's made. And Gina says her conscience is clear. So no deathbed confession for Gina. She taunts Sophia with her theory that Cece will fall in love with her again. Gina also tells Sophia that Lily is her daughter. They got nothing to do but chat. The plane shifts, and Sophia is knocked out by the heavy door. So Gina's stuck under the something that shifted, a beam or a chair or something. And Sophia is knocked out by the heavy door, and I think the pilot actually had hiked to look for help. So, but the Mayday went out, which would have their coordinates. So presumably,
they always say that the best thing to do is just to stay with a plane if you're in a crash.
Yeah, because that's if presumably there's either a transmitter still transmitting, or the pilot transmitted the coordinates, and they'll look for that plane in that location. So. Courtney and Keith check out his new office because Courtney is still decided she wants to be Keith's secretary. Keith says that he thinks that Courtney's plan is to pin Madeline's murder on him. I don't know if the extra thought that maybe Courtney is the killer has entered Keith's head. Keith gives her a list of reasons why he couldn't have killed Madeline. But no alibi, replies Courtney. Keith says, don't ruin this day. Beautiful office, gorgeous secretary, cruise about to drown at sea. Who could hope for anything more?
I feel like, though, there's going to be some point as they keep talking this through, the two of them, where, Keith's not stupid. I think he will start kind of putting, maybe she'll say something that betrays that she was there or something like that. And he'll start putting the pieces together.
Courtney surprises Keith with a confession that she wants him to sign. Instead, he pulls her on the couch and kisses her. She kisses him back, but then after the commercial break, she jumps up and starts rebuttoning her blouse. And Keith says, you failed the test. Madeline would have been in ecstasy by now. Madeline's ghost appears and tells Courtney she could do a lot worse than Keith. So obviously that's Courtney's own subconscious saying that to her. She shouts no at Madeline's ghost, and Keith assumes he's shouting at him and says, what's the matter? And she says, the storm, which I don't know if she just makes that up on the spur of the moment because she doesn't want to say Madeline's ghost, or if there's some storm history with her, too, that's actually exacerbating all of her goofiness in this scene. She hugs Keith, and Keith says, nothing will happen to us. You're safe. So it's this weird back and forth where is she interested in Keith? Is she just trying to get Keith to sign the paper? Or is she just, I don't know. Her feelings for Keith are not 100% clear to me.
Yeah, I find that weird back and forth, actually, for me, works better with Keith and Gina because they're both so transactional, and yet they're, both very much have the hots for each other, and they're both, a little willing to take things to whatever edge they're willing to take them. So I just find that a little more interesting, whereas with this, I just don't quite get that same chemistry. And of course, we know that there might be some deeper issues with Courtney as well.
Yeah, because Courtney says when she jumps off the coach, I don't want it this way. Yeah. So that implies maybe she does want something with Keith. But, I'm also getting the idea that she wishes she were more like Madeline and, could be having flings or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's clearly a side of her that doesn't want that, too. And that is the end of this Tuesday episode. We had some cast credits, and everything is more or less the same. Rosa's still in the credits. Kelly's still in the credits. Sophia Capwell/Armonti is this week's spelling of her name. And Martin Ellis, John Wesley Shipp, is, of course, no longer in the credits, so he had his 11 days in the sun. And then we have Pilot, played by B.J. Jones. Madeline Capwell-Laurent, played by Terry Davis. Commander, played by J.P. Bumstead, Little Michael, played by Max Bettimo, and Little Brian, played by Sean Donahue. So we've actually seen Michael, but not the actor who will be playing grown-up Michael.
Yes.
And they gave the full crew credits too, but I never read those. Sorry, guys. So we will be back after we have seen episode 579. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Guilty as charged. You murdered me. You murdered your own sister. Tell them. Tell them how you crushed my skull and left me lying there on the floor to die. Oh, I can't rest. Such a headache. There's no peace here. Not while you walk free. You're guilty, 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 guilty.
From the Beverly Garland Hotel in Studio City, Misha and Dianne are watching Santa Barbara. We have watched episode 579, which originally aired November 5th, Wednesday, 1986. Well, Tori and crew spent the entire episode still struggling with their craft, and at the end of the episode, the window blew out and water rushed in. So I think they will be drifting ashore very soon, or swimming ashore.
Yeah, and who knows what'll happen. Maybe they'll be stranded on an island together, and there's all kinds of possibilities that could come out of this.
Well, we've just attended the 40th anniversary of Santa Barbara reunion weekend, and there were a shocking number of spoilers, as far as I can tell, about the coming week that were just casually mentioned in conversation. So people talked about the wedding, people talked about cruising Victoria, and I think it's all stuff we're going to see in the next week. So, Cece finds Sophia and Gina, and Cece and Sophia leave, and leave Gina alone for a while, but then Cece returns, and of course he threatens to leave her there, and then Gina says, well, if I don't return, my accomplice is going to destroy the tape, and Kelly will be stuck in Europe forever.
Which actually being stuck in Europe doesn't sound like a bad thing to me, but anyway.
Well, Robin Wright was not at the 40th anniversary reunion, and someone mentioned that she is shooting a film in Italy, so she's stuck in Europe for this. But we did have one Kelly. We had Carrington Garland, whose mother is right behind us here, and she was seemed pleased that we were staying at the family hotel, and she signed my autograph with the Garland Hotel pen that I have. So we will do a full summary of that weekend as a special. All right, Lily is asked to heal a man in a wheelchair, and she is shocked when she fails. And then Brick jumps out and surprises her by telling her that all the people that she thought she's healed this week were all actors working for him, and that she has 24 hours to hold a press conference and announce that she is a fake, or he will do so. So do we think this is the end of Lily Light, the healer?
I don't know. She's managed to turn things around on Brick at least more than once, so she might have some tricks up her sleeve.
Yeah, it seems like a kind of a weird plan to trick someone into thinking they were really healing and then saying, now denounce yourself as a fake. And it's like, well, the actors were the fakes, not her. She thought it was actually working. So, Santana asks Cece for custody of Brandon. And who should appear but Gina, because Cece and Sophia ended up bringing her back to Santa Barbara. And Gina kicks out Santana. Santana, I think, finds this to be the last straw, and she books 2 tickets to Mexico City. So I feel like she is going to kidnap Brandon.
Not for the first time.
Nope. Well, maybe they'll leave the show forever together. Maybe this will be it. Santana will have her happy ending. Now, as you remember, Courtney had fallen asleep on Keith's couch,
and was mumbling in her sleep about killing Madeline. Well, when she wakes up, Keith says to her, "Oh, while you were asleep, you confessed to killing Madeline," which is not entirely the truth of what he heard. So we will see if Courtney falls for it and confesses, or if she even knows she did it, because she is clearly troubled. Mason and Julia find themselves in the Capwell Hotel during this, as you will remember, ongoing storm, and there is a power failure just after they had joked about whether the elevator would stop working while they were in it, and of course they are trapped. Not for weeks and weeks like we expect Cruz and Victoria to be trapped on their island, but long enough for them to talk about, Julia's wanting kids, and Mason has a long talk with her about how he and Mary wanted to have kids, and how, Mary was actually pregnant, so I think this will give something for Julia to mull over as to whether Mason might possibly be the right person to father her child.
And it could be the beginning of the second great romance on this show.
Mm-hmm. We may have heard some spoilers to that effect at the 40th anniversary reunion. Just a little taste of who was there. We had a Mason there. It was Blaine Davies. And we had another Mason, Gordon Thompson. We had one Kelly, Carrington Garland. We had one Ted, Michael Brainerd. We had Eden, played as only by the one actress whose name I can't remember, Marcy Walker. We had Eden, played by Marcy Walker. And are there any other Capwells? There may have been another Capwell or two on that stage that Diane doesn't know about yet.
Well, we did definitely have the great honor of meeting one Capwell by marriage, and that was when Gina Capwell, aka Robin
Matson,
actually came and joined a group of us for breakfast.
Mm-hmm. That was a really great morning. It was really great of Robin Matson to do that. I think she had some back issues, and was worried about spending a long 5-hour evening with various events and moving back and forth and onto stages and upstairs and things. And I think she just felt a smaller, simple meeting with a group at a brunch table would be something she would be more able to handle. And it was really great. And it was a great surprise because one of the members of the group had arranged it without telling anyone else. And so she said, "Oh, how did you all know to be here?" And we were like, "We were already scheduled to have brunch here. You were the surprise." So she was really nice. She was there with her husband. And we had a great hour or two with Robin Matson the morning after the 40th anniversary. So, well, that brings us to the end of episode 579, and we are heading back to Vancouver in a couple of hours, where we will continue with our more regularly scheduled podcasting. So we'll be back for the Thursday episode 580. We will see you then.
Bye-bye.
Julia, even the Capwell Hotel does not have a backup generator for its backup generator.
Well, the Olympics are on, and so we're sitting at the blazing Olympic torch here in Vancouver, which has been running the entire time. No, that's a lie. It's only on for 2 hours. So we raced over here to do a podcast. And we are doing episode 580 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara. And we watched episode 580, which originally aired Thursday, November 6th, 1986. And Eden dreams about finding Cruz. Dad on the beach. Keith is searching for Victoria, and eventually Paul finds someone that saw her get on Cruz's boat. And he tells Eden, and Eden has another dream about finding Cruz making love with Victoria on the beach. So I don't know if these dreams of Eden's are helpful in any way, but I imagine she'll be super agitated in the next episode.
I think they'll make her super motivated to find Cruz.
Mm-hmm. Well, everyone's on the lookout for Cruz. And guess what? Victoria wakes up on the rocks, on the shore of what I assume is an island, and she finds Cruz barely conscious. So she leaves him to scout around, and she finds a lighthouse nearby. And she comes back to help him to the lighthouse, and he is delirious. So she puts him on a bed and then returns to find the first aid kit, which she finds. It's just quite huge. It's a massive first aid kit. Lucky for her, it seems to have some morphine in it, which she says to Cruz, I know how to administer this because I was a stewardess. So her stewardess training coming into play. She injects the already delirious man who has been fantasizing about making love to Eden in his delirium. And now with his double delirium, he once again slips back into his fantasy, but reaches out for Victoria, who is lying next to him, thinking she is Eden. And eventually Victoria decides to just go with it.
I was trying to work out the timelines around this, of how old Cruz and Victoria are, because if Victoria has already been a stewardess and we know that she's been a movie star, it would seem like, and we don't think she was a child actor, so it would seem like they've done a lot in a fairly short period of time.
I don't think she was a stewardess for that long. They did mention that Victoria had given up her stewardess career to go to LA to be an actress. Now Brick finds Santana packing for her trip, and one of the things she's packing is that giant teddy bear of Brandon's. So Brick is maybe suspicious that Santana is going to try to kidnap Brandon, and he does try to talk her out of it, but the next thing we see is Santana going to the Capwell house and is a little annoyed to find a brand new maid who doesn't recognize her, doesn't know she's Rosa's daughter, and says, nope, Mrs. Capwell said no one is to see Brandon. Luckily, Eden shows up and warns Santana that Gina is planning to file a restraining order against Santana. But Brandon comes downstairs, is happy to see Santana, and Eden lets Santana take Brandon out to the front of the house to chat. And Santana says, hey, let's go somewhere, and Brandon goes along with her.
Now this, of course, also indicates that we are back in the 80s, because in this day and age where we're all trying to fit as much as we can into a carry-on, I don't think we would be taking a huge teddy bear with us.
Well, guess who runs into them but Brick, who knows exactly what Santana's doing. And he talks some sense into her and says, you know, you were a good friend to me, and that's what I'm trying to be to you here, because this is a bad move. And they end up taking Brandon back, sneaking him back into the mansion, into his room. So it looks like there won't be any fallout from that. And that explains kind of why Gina Gallego was a little stumped when I said, oh, we just watched the episode where you're about to kidnap Brandon. So I guess because it didn't happen, she did not remember it, because it was just probably a half of a scene. So I don't know if Santana will ever get Brandon at this rate. It's been 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Pearl gets a lead on the woman who writes the novels that sound very much like his brother's stories. So Sybil Jordan runs a bookshop in Big Sur, and Alice wonders if she's Brian's girlfriend. Alice doesn't seem to have a problem with having 2 boyfriends, I think. Paul, however, is annoyed that she's going out of town with Pearl, and then I think also asks her a little bit about the relationship with Brian. So, but Alice is just happily going along collecting boyfriends.
Yeah.
I don't remember this character, Sybil, whatever it was, Jordan. So we'll see what we find in Big Sur. Lily makes the big announcement at the Orient Express, not surprisingly, that she is a fraud, to everyone's shock. And she tells Gina that family is all that matters, really. Cece is then angry with Mason for losing his hold on Lily. Mason is not sure if Lily is on his side or Gina's side. And Lily avoids directly answering all of his questions about if she's still going to try to get the tape from Gina. Keith decides his best option is to follow them, and also he bugs Gina's apartment. Sophia had said to Cece, "Oh, I bet Gina's just anxious to tell someone where that tape is." And so inside the apartment, Lily says, "Oh, this tape I've heard so much about, where is that?" And Gina tells Lily where the tape is hidden, but not before throwing the flowers, in which Keith has hidden the bug, out the window, saying, "These are ugly flowers." So Keith is sitting there underneath her window, desperately trying to get the bug to work. Well, Lily leaves and Keith follows her to the Capwell house. And as Lily sneaks into the Capwell house, Mason spots her from behind a pillar. Keith has to go around the outside of the house, where he sees her entering the study, which Sophia and Cece had been in earlier, and the camera had zoomed in on the boar's head that I've never seen on the wall before, but suddenly is there. Mason is wondering where Gina is. Santana and Brick come downstairs, and Gina arrives at the front door, causing Brick and Santana to hide. So we've got Mason, Brick, Santana, and Gina all skulking around inside the house. Keith on the outside. I don't know if that's going to lead to some kind of thing where maybe someone will end up with the tape that we don't think, but Lily reaches into the boar's mouth and pulls out a video cassette. Now, do you think there's a chance that Gina hit a dummy cassette to see if she could trust Lily?
That sounds like a very Gina move to me.
Because with the wedding only being 2 or 3 days away, I'm kind of thinking that if the tape is gone, Gina's not going to be associated with the Capwells at all. So, and the other option is that Lily gets the tape, but between Mason, Keith, and maybe even Brick and Santana somehow. What if Santana somehow ends up with the tape and decides to trade it back to Gina in exchange for Brandon?
Yeah, there you go.
Saying, "You can have the Capwell millions, or your half of them, but I want Brandon." So that's the only reason I can think why Brick and Santana are in that house and were specifically shown not getting out while Lily was coming in to get the tape. So maybe there'll be something. Maybe Santana will have some luck after all.
One thing I think we should mention is that when Lily announces to everyone that Gina is her mother, the wonderful reaction shots we get from all of the different characters. It's quite a rewarding moment.
Yeah. That is it for episode 380. Tomorrow's episode will be a Friday episode, and then we will post this, and then I think we'll work on the special regarding the Santa Barbara 40th. And we did spot Charles Bateman last night on, was it Mission Impossible? We've been working our way through the tail end of season 7 of Mission Impossible.
It might have been Switch.
Might have been Switch too, but I think it was very clear. Maybe it was on. We just started the Rockford Files too, now that we're out of McLeod's. So anyway, I seem to remember it was a very clear picture, so that's why I don't think it was Switch, because we are watching very, well, basically, if you go on YouTube, you'll find those same episodes of Switch that we're using, and they're very VHS recorded from clearly a second look thing, very low quality. Sometimes you can't even tell if they're in black and white or color, so I don't think it was Switch. Oh well, I'll double check it for the next episode. But pretty much watching these 1970s cop shows, there's always a CC Capwell around the next corner.
There's always a CC.
Yeah. All right, we'll see you after we've seen episode 581. And hope you got a chance to watch some exciting Olympics. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm sitting at Cece's desk, and I'm thinking what a bore it is trying to figure out where to hide this tape, and I look up, and the bore's looking at me, and I said, "That's it!"
Welcome to episode 581 of Misha Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We've watched the 581st episode of Santa Barbara, aired originally Friday, November 7th, 1986. And we just wanted to go back to where we saw Charles Bateman. It was actually in Mission Impossible, Season 7, Episode 19, Speed. And we just watched an episode of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, and we saw Larry Poindexter, who, of course, played Justin on Santa Barbara. And someone upstairs is playing, not a saxophone, but we think it's a recorder or a flute, so you may hear that throughout. Interestingly, the Lois and Clark plot lines seem to be a combination of Santa Barbara plot lines surrounding Kelly Capwell, because Larry Poindexter's character falls in love with an amnesiac Lois, and she's in an institution, and there's an evil doctor who's just trying to keep his experiments going by killing people. So it's a very Dr. Rawlings type situation there. Mm-hmm. Okay, back to the episode. Well, of course, we're all wondering what's going on with Cruz and Victoria. Well, Eden is worrying that Victoria and Cruz will now have a closeness that she will never have with him after surviving their shipwreck, which, I don't know. She's hand-wringing, I think, a little. Mm-hmm. The fact that they have this past relationship seems to be, I would think, more important than this couple days on an island.
Yeah, I mean, has it even been a couple of days? I'm never sure of the timelines.
It's probably the next morning after the storm, right?
Yeah.
But next thing we know, the wedding will be starting, and it'll seem like the same day. The Coast Guard tells Eden they found the remains of the boat, but it looks like the lifeboat was launched. Cruz comes to, but complains about extreme pain, and at one point he says he's blind. So Victoria says, we don't have too many syringes left, but she gives him another shot of, I'm assuming, morphine. I don't know if morphine cures blindness exactly, but it's presumably just for the pain. Well, of course, Cruz once again hallucinates that he's making love to Eden and says, I love you, and Victoria says, I love you, and kisses him. So far I think they've only been kissing.
It occurs to me that morphine is pretty addictive, so it would be quite interesting if we had a Cruz addiction storyline to mirror Santana's. I don't know if they'd go that way with the character.
The point is to get Victoria and Cruz to have sex. So
I think so, and the idea that he needs to be delusional to do that.
Yes, of course, because he's the hero, and you can't have him. You have to have him blameless in these things. It's a very common soap opera thing that two people can get together only if they think their true love is dead, or if they're hallucinating, or maybe they think they're dying. Back on the mainland, Cece chides Carolyn over her relationship with Lionel. He says, when you scratch the surface of Lionel Lockridge, all you get is more surface. Lionel, to Carolyn's surprise, suggests that they might be more than friends. And they end up kissing. Then Carolyn pulls back and says she doesn't want to make the same mistakes with Lionel that she usually makes with other men to overcome some of her other failings. And Lionel says, you mean with Jane? She says, partly. And then for some reason he says, with Alice? Which I don't know where that came from necessarily. But Carolyn runs out the door at this. So
I was trying to figure out if this, was sincere, or if this is part of her usual pattern when she's with men to kind of pull back and then allow herself to be drawn in and actually drawing the person in instead.
I mean, I suppose, she blames herself that Alice somehow ended up in the institution. Lily takes the tape out of the boar's mouth and hides when Mason enters the study, because Gina finds the key for him. They, of course, think there's no one there, and they have a bit of a discussion. Then Gina leaves, and then Mason discovers Lily behind the desk, as he was going to get some papers. And he demands to know where the tape is. I know it's in here somewhere. I'll tear this place apart if I have to. Well, Lily cleverly glances at the bookcase that hides the secret passageway to the tunnels, and Mason says, aha, yes, of course it's in the tunnels. And he goes into the tunnels, and somehow Lily is very conversant with the mechanism of the of this thing because she flicks the switch inside the study that locks the door from the outside. So Mason can't get back that way. He would have to run to the gazebo, presumably, or the Lockridge basement. So Lily catches up with Gina, who's still in the atrium, I think, or maybe on her way out. No, in the atrium, and tells her, "I have the tape." Gina's a little annoyed, thinking, the tape was safe where it was, as you might imagine. But she's not suspecting Lily has any negative intentions, which is good. Cece and Sophia come home, letting Lily leave, but stopping Gina, asking her to move the wedding from L.A. to Santa Barbara. So Gina had previously mentioned some hotel in L.A. that she thought would be great for the wedding, and I guess she's been planning all that. My feeling is the wedding will happen in Santa Barbara because that's where all the sets are.
Now, how extensive are the tunnels still? Because there has been a cave-in, so I'm not sure
That's
Mason
true. There
could
was an
actually get very
explosion.
far in the tunnels.
Well, then it would have been very unsafe of Cece to leave that lock on there because Brandon could get locked in there. Mm-hmm. But then again, he never removed that two-way mirror in the presidential suite, so it's a bit lax on these things. We'll see if someday someone makes it to the gazebo or maybe another tunnel entrance we don't know about from that library or study, or maybe we'll never see the tunnels again. So as Lily comes out the door, of course she runs into Keith, who's been following her progress through the window of the study and knows she has the tape, demands she give it to him, and she kicks him in the shins and manages to get away. We had postulated that Brick and Santana might be involved somehow, but they do not appear in this episode. She runs to Gina's motel room. She watches the tape, so we see a bit of Kelly and Dylan, just to remind us that Kelly's still on the show. And Keith arrives and bangs on the door and threatens to break it down. So she gets Gina's gun from the bureau and takes the tape and the gun and escapes out the window. It's luckily Gina's on the first floor. Gina arrives to find Keith smashing up her motel room looking for the tape, but finds Lily's empty purse and assumes Lily has left with the tape. I mean, I would assume Lily left with the tape even without searching the room. Mm-hmm. And Keith says to Gina that Lily's probably making her own deal with Cece right now, which Gina says, nope, she's completely dedicated to our family. I like how they're still leaving it open as what Lily's motivation is. Like this, the kind of, leaving the viewer wondering as well as Mason and Gina's not wondering yet, but she will be soon. Mason arrives to find out what's going on just as Lily phones, and Mason picks it up and tells her not to give the tape back to Gina. And Gina shouts, "Don't listen to him." Anyway, Mason said, "Oh, I heard something on the phone call that lets me know exactly where Lily is." So he runs off without telling Gina or Keith where Lily is.
How did he get out of the tunnel?
Oh, sorry. Did I say Sophia and Cece come home letting him out of the tunnel? Oh, Cece and Sophia free Mason and find out that Lily had the tape. Sorry, I accidentally reversed those. Yeah. That's how he got out of the tunnel. So Mason, says that he knows where he is. Cece's man, who is bugging Gina's phone, tells Cece that Lily just called Gina from the beach bar. Keith's man, who has bugged Cece's phone, tells Keith that Lily is at the beach bar. Lily calls Gina back and tells her that she's at the beach bar. So everyone knows that Lily's at the beach bar, Gina's headed there, Keith's headed there, Cece may well be headed there, Mason's headed there. Gina arrives first, somehow, and accuses Lily of just pretending to love her so she can get the tape. So all of Mason and Keith's nagging has gotten to her. Lily says all Gina cares about is her precious tape, and Gina is unable to convince her that she's just, It's just motherly love that she's most interested in. And Lily, to everyone's surprise, pulls out Gina's gun and aims it at Gina. So I don't know why Lily would do that unless she's planning to use that tape for her own ends. Somewhere nearby, in the heavy fog, Mason hears a gunshot. Now maybe some things happened in between, and maybe Cece or Keith has arrived, and the gunshot is related to that. We will find out in the next episode. Presumably, Gina was just recently shot, so
I was
it
just
seems...
thinking it would be ironic if she got shot in the leg again and spends another 2 months hobbling around.
I feel like the reason they let us see Mason hear the shot is that maybe some things have been rearranged at the beach bar in between the two scenes, and we will see what really happens tomorrow. I'm going to say maybe it's Keith that showed up, and maybe Lily aims it at Keith. Or maybe Lily spotted Keith behind Gina in the scene we saw, and she's actually not aiming at Gina, but Keith.
Or maybe someone jumped out and grabbed Lily from behind the bushes and forced the gun to shoot.
Anyway, I don't know if anyone necessarily will be hit by the gunshot, or if it'll just be, the gun went off in a struggle.
I feel like there's not really... I'm just thinking about our recent trip to Santa Barbara, and I feel like there's not really a lot of sort of wildernessy areas there.
Well, they're at the beach bar.
Oh, that's right.
In the fog. So
Okay.
which is why it kind of seems a little alien.
Yeah.
Pearl and Alice. Alice doesn't get many lines in this scene. Questions Sybil Jordan, who is played by Michelle Nicastro, known to Santa Barbara fans as Sasha Schmidt, a character that will be introduced a number of years in the future. But it looks like Michelle Nicastro had another smaller role this year. The woman claims that she wrote all of those books by herself without any input from anyone else. So Pearl, at Alice's begging, admits that he is the brother of Brian Bradford. And pretty sure he said his last name because she then subsequently called him Mr. Bradford several times. But she says she is not familiar with that name. And Pearl wonders, reading some of the passages aloud that are, sound like his brother Brian, wonders if she heard some of those unique phrases somewhere. And she volunteers that she went out with a lot of guys when she lived in New York, and maybe someone said a phrase or something that was in her subconscious.
Now, maybe I misheard some of this, but it sounded like one of the words that Pearl thought was unique was the word pondering, which is not unique, and which she says she made up.
I think it was a slight change on that word, like a extra childish ending to it or something. Ponderarily or something. So, of course, after Pearl leaves, he sticks around and looks through the window to see Sybil immediately go to the phone and call someone. Of course, we and Pearl all hope that she is calling Pearl's brother, because it's been a long time that they've been looking for him. It's got to be about time for him to show up. And that's the end of the episode, and that's the end of week 119 of Santa Barbara. So we will be back next week, well, probably 2 weeks, with episode 582. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
He's a delightful man. Witty, charming, wonderful company.
Lionel Lockridge?
Well, how many Lionels do you know?
I'm terribly sorry. No, I realize you haven't asked for my advice.
No, I haven't.
I just thought I might issue a fair warning. Well, I know you don't need it. But when you scratch the surface with Lionel, all you get is more surface.